We are in the dead of the NBA offseason. We are in full offseason workout territory, guys taking vacations. But there's one storyline within the Sixers team that I do think is worth talking about. I want to discuss Adem Bona and why he may be adding a layer to his game that could expand the opportunity for him within the Sixers team. Now, as I mentioned, not a ton going on in the Sixers world at this point in time. We got Paul George working out with Jeff Doughton and Jared McCain, him also making his way at the U.S. Open. We also got to look at shout out to Ricky Council and Tyrese Maxey taking things down in Mexico down there. Not a lot going on, even the arena discussions that we could get into, all stuff that I don't want to dive fully into today. And just a quick note about the arena here that the latest update that we have is that the Sixers arena proposal is expected to become a leading topic for the city council this fall. The team has now requested a new provision that could complicate the negotiations. I'm not going to touch on a full video on that right now. To be honest, a lot of it I think is overblown and a little above just the Sixers or my pay grade for breaking this down. It's going to be a pretty political event that is between the city of Philadelphia, now the state of New Jersey, and everything else getting involved. That's all stuff that I will let play itself out before I give my takes on, but ultimately I don't think a lot is going to be happening there. Now, what I do want to talk about today is specifically Adem Bona. Now, there's some high hopes for the UCLA product after he was drafted in the second round of this year's NBA draft. Unlike a lot of second rounders who tend to, don't have a guaranteed contract based on the draft, and oftentimes has work their way up through a two-way contract or maybe sometime in the G League. The Sixers showed their good faith in Bona by handing him a standard NBA deal right away to start his NBA career. Got a chance to take a look at him in Summer League when I was out there in Las Vegas. Shout out with RB Philly taking things in out there. And the number one thing that stood out to me was his motor. That guy never turned things off. He was the hardest working guy on the floor every second that he was on it. Now we're showing a bit of, I guess he's teasing in his offseason workouts some perimeter shooting. So I'm going to pull up this video here. This is Adem Bona working out in the UCLA gym, and the form does look pretty good, practicing those corner threes there. And why I think this is so noteworthy, on top of obviously anyone basically needs to be able to shoot in today's NBA, there's a need for his skill set within the Sixers rotation as the plus rebounder that he is. That I've seen a lot of you guys in the comments pushing for, can this guy be a power forward? And my straight answer at this point in time is probably not. However, that would change greatly if he's able to be a reliable three-point shooter, a guy who can space the floor from the perimeter, be a pick and pop threat, jump out and shoot threes. All of a sudden, we have a completely different story to this overall question here. And why I think that is so crucial with Adem Bona, and also a quick shout out that he's already working out with the Sixers staff. This is clearly a plan that they have in place. This is not something that he just woke up and decided, I want to start doing it. This is something that was very clearly mapped out by the Sixers staff here, and that they have this plan in action already. But when looking at what the Sixers have as a team, power forward has been the consistent weakness that we've talked about. Daryl Morey himself has been open up saying that if there is a downfall to this team, it's likely going to be on the boards here. That even a team built around Joel Embiid, who's not the best rebounder, unfortunately for his size, a guy that's still always going to be a consistent double-double, 10-plus rebound guy on a night-by-night basis, but just doesn't have that gift for knowing how the ball is going to come off the rim when you compare it to some of the better rebounders across the league. And then when you factor out that they're probably going a little small with both Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre as to the starting lineups, Paul George really the second tallest guy on the floor and not a guy who's an overly plus rebounder himself. And then, of course, Tyrese Maxey rounding things out. The bottom line is there's a need for more help from the rebounding position, and that's exactly what Adem Bona brings to the floor. Now, where there is the problems with how this all fits together, I personally would like to see Nick Nurse experiment a little more with Joel Embiid sharing the floor with another big man. If Bona is capable of being that guy, that would be terrific to me. And why I think this makes sense, when you look at the defensive side of the floor, is kind of where the concerns are that either Embiid or that other big man would need to guard in the perimeter. Bona, I wasn't blown away by his footwork in training camp, and he's a guy who I think is very clearly at his best when protecting the rim, as is Joel Embiid. I think Embiid is not as landlocked to playing drop coverage and not switching out to the perimeter as he's oftentimes talked about. Frankly, I've seen him switch onto the perimeter and stick with guards at a way higher level than a lot of big men in the NBA, but not a guy that's asked to do that a ton because of how much he carries offensively. But it is that offensive side of the floor that I see this room for optimism. Then think about how often the Sixers offense funnels through Joel Embiid facing up at the elbow or in the mid-range. And while that's a great shot and he knocks that down at an incredibly high efficiency clip there, there's room for another big man to be fighting for offensive boards, trying to create extra possessions. That there's a reason that the Sixers team has not ranked highly in the offensive rebounding statistics over the past few years. It's because your best rebounder in Joel Embiid is comfortable sitting out there at the mid-range and likely the guy shooting the ball. So adding another guy like Adem Bona could certainly open things up here. Now, to talk about this Sixers team as a whole, as I slide over to the wrong screen, Paul George is a guy that I do think will need to play an impact on the rebounds. But 5.2 per game, that's about equal to what we got from Tobias Harris last year. A bit more size from Paul George, but fairly similar with that. Of course, it is Joel Embiid that's going to be leading the way. 11 rebounds per game last year, which is about on par with what we expect from him on a year-by-year basis. I would love it, and I've talked about this in a couple different formats here. I would absolutely love it if we see this commitment to the rebounding side of the ball from Joel Embiid, that now with the Tyrese Maxeys and Paul George capable of carrying some of this scoring load that otherwise has not been the case, take your foot off the gas in that category and focus out on other ways you can impact winning. If we get a version of Joel Embiid this season that maybe is averaging closer to 26 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists, that might be the best version to optimize him as a player. And I didn't also want to brush over the growth that we're seeing with Tyrese Maxey. That has been a storyline that I know there's been plenty of attention paid to in general, but I still don't think people recognize just how significant these leaps are. That year in and year out, this guy has stepped into bigger and bigger shoes, and I don't think that is stopping anytime soon. Well, it's cool that he's out there vacationing with his guy Ricky Council IV. I think there's a little more to this, just two guys going and having fun. I wanted to reference this specific quote from a couple months ago back in April, where this coming from Tyrese Maxey on Ricky Council here says, quote, "After every shoot around, I make him shoot threes with me because if he gets that down, especially like the corner three, he can be a special player in this league." And Ricky Council is another guy that is fighting for that same type of role-specific position where he could be the quote-unquote power forward, even though I know he's not the traditional size. If he can play like a Josh Hart-like role where he is a guy rebounding above what his height would indicate you expect to be the case, a guy who does have those physical athletic traits to go up and get a board, that's something that'd be really intriguing to me. So I like that Tyrese Maxey has already openly shown his belief in him. It's cool that they're hanging out that the offseason, that there is that relationship building there. And I do think that while it won't be as clear-cut as everything, that might be a sneaky debate there as we're talking about who is the actual fit there. KJ Martin, another guy who's going to be in the mix here that I think this specific Sixers team does have a better, I guess, clearer opportunity for him to carve out a role than last year's team. Gershon Yabusele, I'm also incredibly high on. It's going to be fun to watch the power forward position, how things shape out. Or maybe Caleb Martin is a guy that straight up can play like a power forward in a way that he has not really done in the past few years. Just 4.4 rebounds per game last year. A guy that is just 6'5", still 28 years old. A dude that is a gamer to the fullest extent there. Maybe he can step in those shoes and really lock down that spot in the way that this Sixers team needs. And to acknowledge the rebounding problems as a whole, the biggest solution here is very clearly Andre Drummond, a guy that was in the top 1 percentile for rebounding last year. But unlike what I'm hoping for with the Adem Bona, I don't know if I have as much hope that Drummond can ever be any type of floor spacer or be any more than what he is as an offensive product. What he is perfectly high as a floor guy that he can, finish around the rim, dunk whenever he gets the opportunity. Still a pretty good passer for his size at times, tries to do a bit too much in that category. He's fine as an offensive player. But the reality is, I think we recognize who Andre Drummond is at this point in his career. And I don't have a ton of optimism that the moments in which him and Joel Embiid are each on the floor are going to be, I guess, very fluid on the offensive or defensive side of things there. So maybe Bona can be that guy. Maybe Ricky Council IV can end up being that guy. Maybe Gershon Yabusele is that guy. But the bottom line is there's a lot of options for this power forward position, and I'm pretty thrilled to see that Adem Bona is already putting in the work. That's been one of the calling cards for him as a reputation as a player, is he is ready to be a grinder. He wants to be a worker. His just work rate, commitment, determination, all these things are great characteristics. And I think that's another thing that this organization has really hit out of the park lately is adding those types of players to the organization. That you build a culture by bringing in good players who want to work hard. And it seems like the Sixers have really done a nice job starting to make sure that is the norm. Ultimately, still a lot to be decided, still a lot of offseason to get through for this Sixers team, but I do want to hear from you guys in the comments. I know a lot of you have mentioned that you want Bona to grow into that power forward role, so is this music to your ears seeing him shoot corner threes like that? And what do you think the real chances of that happening? I'm still a bit skeptical for this being a short-term solution to this Sixers team. I think he's going to be a bit of a work in progress, still kind of raw as a player, but I absolutely would love to be wrong about that and see him being ready for day one. So we'll see how things shake out from there, but appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video. Make sure you smash the subscribe if you have not already. Drop a like on the video here and any comments you have below. And I'll be talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.